Welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Long from Conway PD, 36 years total experience in law enforcement. He is a lifelong resident of Conway and he was involved in youth sports for over 20 years. Welcome to the show, Chief Long. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm really looking forward to it. So, you are a chief, but you're also a husband, you're a dad, and you're a granddad.
I am.
What is your advice or maybe lessons that you've learned throughout your career about juggling home and work life and making sure that you have not just a successful career, but also a successful life at home?
Uh, that is a great takeoff for how you're able to manage stress, period.
Mm,
Uh, you cannot invest so heavily in any one thing. I really believe that balance is really key. You need to be able to divide that time well. When you're at work, you need to be at work. And when you're at work, you need to be engaged and you need to be doing the best you can. Um, when you're at home, it's really hard sometimes to unplug, but you really need to turn that off and be there and be just as plugged in and just as uh, helpful and wanting to do things as good as you can at home as well. And I think that those things help you have uh, less stress, even though you're like, whoa, 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 all those things just contribute to all the stress that you have in your life. But if you understand how each of those helps you be better at the other, it helps to provide opportunities and they are the diversion. When you're with family, certainly there's stress that can happen there. And when you're at work, it gives you a chance to kind of disconnect that. But when you're at work and things are bothering you really bad, it's easy to disconnect from that. So you don't start having these accumulated problems because you're able to turn that off and then get plugged into the family. Um, so for me, my whole life about how I've been able to successfully navigate is is through that balance.
mm. I think that's really interesting. I don't think I've ever heard anyone describe it that way of, hey, the key to de-stressing from work is to be present at home because you don't have
Yes,
to think about work and then vice
that's right.
versa. And they feed into each other. And I don't think I've ever had anyone explain it that way. And I think perspective is so powerful because to your point, you could be like, now I'm at home and now I'm stressed with home stress. You're like, but yeah, but it's a different kind of stress. You're not dealing with the work stress. You get to offload the work stress, and now you have your home life, which is completely different. And so it's a really unique perspective, and I appreciate you sharing that. I don't think anyone's explained it that way before.
Yeah, that stuff at work will be waiting on you when you go back.
100%. And I think too, like somewhere along the way, and I don't know if you can relate to this or if Jess, you can relate to this, but I used to think when I was younger that it was all or nothing. I thought that like I had to put 100% into one thing and that was the only way I was going to be successful. And so for me, I chose my career. I was like, if I just put everything and sacrifice everything else for my career, that was how I was going to be successful. And then what I realized is that I burned out really quickly. And when I was done, I had my life in shambles because I didn't focus on my life at all. I sacrificed my personal life for my work life. And as I've gotten older and my perspective has changed, I realize that you can have it all. You can be successful in your career and you can work really hard and you can put your all into it when you're there. And you can do that at home. You don't have
I,
to
yeah,
trade off.
yeah, I had to give you the time out there. You asked me the question for what's my words of advice now? Oh, I was not always that way. No, I did. That has been a learning process as I have gotten older and wiser and have learned that, yeah. Um, it was when I was 21 and first starting in law enforcement, it was kick every door that we could. It was every raid, everything. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be involved. And yeah, it did come at a cost of having to really realize that that can consume you.
Hmm.
So that's been a evolution for me that over the years, and that is my best advice. when you're starting off younger is to consider that faster than I did, which is try to have that work-life balance, the outside things, the coaching, the youth ministry that I was involved with through my church. All those things gave me every opportunity. All those build upon each other, believe it or not.
Mhm.
It helped me to make more contacts. It helped me to be more invested in my community. It helped me to understand younger culture, younger generation better because I was either doing church work with um, middle and high school age kids, or I was coaching youth sports. And then all that kind of plays into, okay, now you know a little bit better how to do things at home because you see things in those perspectives. So yeah, that's been an evolution for me over the years of learning how to do it better. But I would challenge people to think about that more upfront than I did and try to get it right quicker.
Yeah, and I would imagine that there are a lot of people who can relate to
Yep,
what you just said. So
Yes,
thank you.
I
yep,
agree. And there's two important things that you said there, and it's the presence and the balance. And to be able to
yes.
have both of those and use those. And I was just going to ask, like, for the department, like, how would you say that the department supported you? Because
Well,
you mentioned the church and some of those other outside factors.
yes.
What tools did you receive from the department?
Opportunity.
Mm.
I mean, I cannot look back on any part of my law enforcement path and not see how each step prepared me for the next.
Mhm.
Um, Not always intentionally, and not in a bad way, but it's just kind of the migration through how I navigated my career kept get me a little bit ready. But I do, well, I say that it's not necessarily paved that pathway for me, but I believe that the word that I used a moment ago for balance is I did seek more balance in my career of not wanting to be so focused on any one thing. Um, I did a lot of investigations. I did a lot of work in narcotics. I've done my fair share of patrol duties. I've tried to do everything to become a more well-rounded officer so that I understand the big picture of law enforcement. And that balance there is also kind of translated. I guess that, I don't want that's not my buzzword is
Yeah.
balance, but those two things did happen that way. In my in my personal life, I have found that being able to balance all of those things and um, have those commitments that give you the diversion from the other things were really well, but also within my career, the balance that I had of being able to experience many things and do many jobs and roles within law enforcement was very appreciated. I never got pigeonholed anywhere of this is where you're at, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're good at, so that's where you're stuck. So I try to make sure that I give everybody opportunities here as well to kind of figure out where do you want to go. Give me kind of with your path, how can I get you there?
Yeah, I think that's so important. Just getting
Yes.
uncomfortable and trying something new.
Yeah.
I was just
Well,
going to
that,
say
that goes
that,
back to
Jess.
some youth
Yeah.
ministry. Some of the work was
Yeah.
it's called doing hard things.
Yeah.
And doing hard things. I don't know how we're going to dig to where we're going. I don't know the end game of where we're going here, but that is one challenge that I ask people here. I said, when you see a job that really is not the glamorous job and nobody really wants to do it, you be the person that raises your hand and say, hey, I'll do that. And then do it really good and see how people will start to take notice and remember when you stepped up to do things that were a little uncomfortable, a little challenging, not the most glamorous, not the most, the most glitz attached to it, but it was something that was needed to be done, and you did it very well. Again, doing those hard things in a lot of different things in life, I think just helps you to have that balance and the ability to separate and stay where you're at when you're there.
And I
I
think
love that.
the more you are able to do hard things, the more confidence you have in your ability to
Oh
do
yeah.
hard things. I heard something the other day, and I've said this a couple times on the podcast because I thought for me it was such a light bulb moment. There was this question that came up that said, Are you afraid of failure or are you afraid of other people seeing you fail? Because there's a difference. And I think when we start to talk about uncomfortability and doing hard things, there's maybe a fear of stepping out of comfort zones because there's a fear of failure or fear of maybe not being the best, right? Being a beginner, being new at something. And I really liked that question because I think for most people, the fear is other people seeing you fail or seeing
Yes.
you like maybe suck at something, you know? And so to me, it puts it in perspective of, am I actually afraid of failing or am I afraid of what other people are going to think about me?
Right.
And, if it's the latter, if it's I'm afraid that people are, of what people are going to think of me, how do I get past that? Because that's what's holding us back. Who cares? Like, I've gotten to the point now, maybe just because I'm getting older, I'm like, who cares if I fall on my face or if I'm not as good at something? I know that the more I do it, the more confidence I'm going to build and the better I'm going to be. And I think we have to be willing to put ourselves out there and we have to be willing to put in the work that other people aren't willing to do if we want to come out on top. And so we have to kind of shut out that fear of what other people are going to think of us and just do it.
I agree.
I wanted to ask you a little bit because I liked how you talked about how everything feeds into another. The more you're able to step out of your comfort zone and try different roles and work with different groups of people, that you're able to improve yourself not only at work but at home. And I know that you've worked the last 20 years in youth sports. And
Yeah.
Jess and I were actually just having this conversation the other day. How do you think that coaching sports parallels being the chief of an organization? Do you draw any similarities to
I
like how
do.
you show up and train? Okay, I would love to hear it.
Oh, I do. I absolutely do that, and also the youth ministry work as well. So the parallel that I think that I would draw is look at where you're at, what you're doing, and what's the similarities. And for the police department, I have my department. So I'm always working as hard as I can to provide opportunities, funding, training, equipment, salaries, all of the benefits that I can. So I'm always trying to take care of my team. But then I have a step outside of that, which is my other department heads across the city that I have to coordinate things with. Uh, I have my bosses. I have my deputy administrator. I have my administrator. I have my mayor, my council. So I have those folks. That's the next ring of that. I have the city of Conway. I have the people. I have the people that I serve. So I've got all these competing groups. My department wants everything I can give them. The city of Conway wants everything I can give it. And my boss, my mayor, my council, they want results as well. So then I flip that over to the same thing with sports. And I coach baseball more than anything. I coach football, coach basketball, um, but baseball was the one that I coached the most. So same thing. I got the players. I got my team. I got those parents sitting outside the fence that, now is that next ring of I've got to please them. I've got this other team and these other coaches and these other parents that we're playing against. And I have to put up a quality team with good effort that does things right so that even if they're better, we still try to do and play as fair as we can. If we're better, we still play with good sportsmanship. So we're always, so again, it's those rings of people that want your attention. The same thing within my youth ministry. I got those youth that were under my care, under my watch that I taught and that I led. So I'm taking care of my team. I got those parents that have all those expectations and want this and want that. Outside of those parents, that's that immediate, tell me what you're doing for us. I have the church as a whole that's wanting to make sure that their investment into a youth ministry is being used wisely. And so it's those same competing rings and groups and things there. So um, I see them as being so similar of knowing how to try to work with all of the people that are competing for what you're trying to offer.
Mm, love it. Thank you.
How do you manage that like noise that's going on the outside, or if you notice someone struggling within any one of those, whether it's a team sport, the
Yep.
department? Can you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah. Well, my kids finally got old enough. So I finally graduated myself. Once they graduated out of some of these youth sports that they were involved in, I started realizing when spring came around, I'm like, I don't have to go to the ball field. So now when I go to watch other people's kids play, it's like, man, this is so easy. But now that I'm not quite doing those things as much as I used to, I still work and do things church wide. But internally, yeah, everybody has expectations, and uh, probably coaching was one thing, but let me put the other thing in perspective here. Um, Umpiring and refereeing completely changes what you're doing with the game. So, there was times I was refereeing basketball games and literally I'm having to watch and not step on parents' feet that are on the bleachers that close to the sideline and them right in my ear, about how you stink, you stink. And I'm like, I don't care what's happening behind me. I've got to pay attention to what's happening in front of me. This is where my kids are at. This is where I got to make sure they're not doing something. They're not getting hurt. They're doing things right. I'm calling the game as fair as I can. But of course, everybody behind you thinks that, everything's a foul and everything's a penalty or everything should be a whistle being blown. Um, so it is a very difficult challenge to not hear this. And you see it when it doesn't happen well. When you see the people turn around and start looking behind them at the parents and at the fans and stuff like that, it goes bad real quick. So kind of the parallel here is, if I start listening to, some of the noise, I live here in Conway, South Carolina, and the reason that I said that I'm a lifelong native, um, not many. Okay. We're South Carolina is one of the fastest growing states in the country. Our positive population growth is phenomenal. Um, Everybody's moving here. We are a very popular destination. I'm 20 minutes from the beach. So I got the beach that's here and everybody's wanting to move here. We're really in that midpoint between Northeast and Florida. So, always hot in Florida. We actually have seasons here in South Carolina. So people have kind of found that to be the little magic spot they've liked. Uh, the county that I'm in, fastest growing county in the state. The city that I'm in is growing just as fast as anybody here. Our annualized growth is phenomenal. Um, so we are seeing so much growth and so many more demands upon our law enforcement product. And it's challenging. It's challenging simply because we can't grow as fast as they can come.
Mm.
The housing market here is at a boom. People are just, flooding here by the droves. My little joke that I tell people when we start talking about all this, I'll stop and I'll go, I think I just heard a U-Haul stopping. Somebody started unloading while we were here talking, and that's how fast it is. I think the number they kick around is 5 people per day are moving to our county.
Oh.
So you're like times 365 every single day. Yeah, that adds up really quick. So the ability to keep pace with the demands of more dense population, more expansion, uh, do more with less. We can't grow as fast as what's happening. So we have to be very, very careful. And where we're at, we have tremendous community support. Um, People here love the place. And that's one reason why I love being here and this is my home is it is not uncommon at any place that you go to, somebody will tap you and say, thank you for your service many times a day. They love what we're doing. So I challenge, and that's my recruiting tip for anybody who hears this that's in a northern tier state that you're like, they don't love the police. Conway, South Carolina, I'm actually not hiring right now. We have a closed process because we're almost full.
Oh,
But it is difficult to tune out that noise of all these demands because people that are coming, they have such increased expectations. You know, they want more, they want more, they want more. And why did they move here? They moved here because the cost of living was lower and they're living so cheap, but they want more. They're paying less, but they want more. So it's difficult to manage sometimes the expectations as we're growing so fast. But we just tune that out. And it's like, listen, let whoever wants to, say things about how things are going, that the growth is happening so fast. And it's traffic. Okay. Traffic is traffic is traffic is traffic. Every day it's fix the traffic. I can't because more people are moving again. So how do we manage that? It's like we manage it the best we can, and the role of the police department to try to keep it as safe as we can. And statistically, I'll show you all the numbers and the data that show that we're doing exactly that. So don't listen to anyone who comes here that has the different politics, the different ideals, the different expectations. Here in South Carolina, Conway, South Carolina, people appreciate and respect us, and they love it when we show up.
yeah. To me, it sounds like, and I want to kind of go with both of them, but when you were refereeing,
Yeah,
and you had everyone in your ear telling you you stink and all their
yeah,
opinions, and then now drawing that parallel to being in law enforcement and hearing the noise and
yeah.
maybe some of the opinions. To me, it sounds like an incredible amount of mental training and emotional regulation that you've been able to develop over time of not reacting to those things, and being able to take that tactical pause and choose how you want to respond and choose to respond in a professional way. And I think a lot of people don't have those skills. A lot of people, if someone's screaming at them, telling them that they stink, would respond and react in probably a negative way. And so to me, that's wellness, your ability to take those deep breaths, tune out the noise, still be effective in what you do, be able to respond in a professional and effective way. When did wellness become a part of the conversation for you yourself, but also for your organization?
Well, personally for me, and I know that we're looking at a overall wellness theme to this, but I will start off with my physical health. Um, there was a time when I had gotten up to a lot more weight than I wanted to be. Uh, I was fat. Okay, I'll just say it. And I had a buddy of mine that stopped at the house one day and said, "Hey, let's go for a bike ride." And that was 1990.
Mm,
And I still have people who run into me today and they're like, "Are you still riding that bike?" And I'm like, "I am
wow.
every day, not every day, most days." Got my log right here, rode 13 this morning. So I got up, rode 13 miles before I came to work. Uh, my answer back to them is they're like, "Are you still riding that bike?" I said, "I can't get anybody to do it for me. So I find out I have to do it myself." So my journey there really started with um, reclaiming and getting myself more physically fit, and being able to do my job better, and having more energy, for all these other things that I was doing outside of work, outside of home, and then having the energy to go home and still try to invest in my family. So that wellness part started for me in 90. Um, the bigger picture for me started, I was involved in a critical incident in 1993. It was officer involved shooting, and 1993 we had nothing. I mean, we had no resources. There was nothing out there. There was no model. So we were the event that I was in also involved a couple of state agencies that were there, and those state agencies got together afterwards, and their officers that were involved, they were like, "We know we need to do something for them, but we also don't have the answer. So from 93 going into 94, they started coming up with plans, and they developed in the state of South Carolina what later became known as the South Carolina Law Enforcement Assistance Program. That is our go-to now, first call. If we have a critical incident where we need to do a debrief or where we need to have officer support. It did not exist. It arose out of an incident that I was involved in. And, that's kind of gratifying to know that we had no answers. They sent me, I'm in Conway on the coast. They sent me to Columbia, which is in the middle of the state capital, to a psychiatrist and said, you need to go talk to them. And I'm like, about what? And they're like, well, we don't know, but it's just what the thing that you should do. So there was no plan, there was no structure. But out of that, there again came this plan to where it now had a model. The state of South Carolina actually funded it. Every state law enforcement agency, from the Highway Patrol to our state police to corrections, our Department of Natural Resources, all of those agencies bought into this SC Leap and started supporting it, funding it, but more importantly, they started utilizing it so that it continued to grow. And it is still in existence now. They have peer teams that go all over the state whenever there's critical need. So that was kind of the evolution for me of my physical health kind of took the start of this, where I realized that I needed to do something for myself, and have tried to manage that and try to maintain a level of fitness, which I'm much older than I was then. Like I said, but I still get out and do these things for myself. But to see the fact that there was a need that was not being addressed, and the creation of a program that we now utilize here as well. Again, I use the word, it was very gratifying.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I wanted to kind of go back to is, that friend of yours who came up to you and was like, "Do you want to go for a bike ride?"
Yep.
And how that has impacted your life now 35, 36 years later.
Yes.
I think is a really important reminder to all of us that we all have the ability to inspire change and positive
Yep.
change. And it could be something as small as that, as just
Yep.
looking out for someone and being like, "Hey, do you want to come with me? Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to go for a bike ride?"
Yep.
And that can improve someone's life for forever. So I wanted to just kind of point that out, that I thought that
Yep.
that was a um, really interesting and important thing to remind all of us of, is that we have the ability to inspire positive change.
Yeah, well, I'll give credit where credit is due, because I always give the attribution to where it belongs. And it was a neighbor and a friend of mine. I tell people Ernest Porter, that's his name. Ernest Porter saved my life.
Shout
And
out
they'll look
to
at me and they'll be
Ernest.
like, what did he do? And I said, he came to my house and said, hey, you want to go for a bike ride? And from that, I've never quit. I don't know how many bikes I've gone through since then. I've raced, I've done all kinds of events, but it it worked for me. And again, it was because he stopped by there and said, "Let's go."
And I also think that it opened your mind now as a leader of an organization to prioritize wellness. So not only did he help to save your life, but he helped you to be able to do that for others.
That's
And
that. That's
it's
that
snowballed.
well-rounded part.
Yep.
That's that well-rounded part. He shaped, he filed, he sanded, however you want to say. He made that part of me fit right, so that yeah, it's one of those stones that I have built a foundation upon.
I love that. Thank you.
It is imperative as a leader that you lead with that as a priority. Um, when we have a critical incident, and I'm at that point where, okay, we stabilized everything, and now I'm like, okay, I need to go ahead and make these calls and start this. When we call in for a peer review, we try to have it as quickly as we can, usually within a day or two, if possible. Um, always at least within that week, we're going to have that peer team come in, and it is managing the days off so that they can come. We do not do a peer review on duty, because that radio calls you and you're like, hey, I got to go. So we're like, no, you're going to be off. I'm gonna pay you. So you're going to get some overtime to come in for this. We're going to feed you. We're going to have lunch, so we're going to all, have a good social time when we get done. Um, I go only for the introduction part because, uh, if I was not there, I don't need to be part of the debrief. So I go, I introduce, the peers, and I tell them my personal experience using peer teams in the past for things that I was involved in, how beneficial it is, how it works, and to tell them also. So listen, the only two things that they will possibly tell me out of what happens in this room is if you tell them that the same thing that you already know. If you want to go do some harm to yourself or to someone else, they're compelled to tell me that so we can help you. Other than that, if they say everything went well, my only other question is, did everybody participate? Because if you just sat there like, I don't want to be here, I'll fix you with one-on-one if that's what I need. If you don't want to do it in the group, if you don't want to, but it has always been very helpful when we do a peer team. If 3, 4, 5 officers, 10, however many were there, when they tell things from their perspective of how they saw it, how they believed it, how they perceived things, and what they felt and what they thought, it validates and normalizes. Oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one who felt that way. So I think that one of the challenges that I would give to any other agency or any other chief or sheriff is, this works. You need to believe it and you need to lead it. You can't just have somebody make the phone call and tell them where they need to be. I do all that heavy lifting when it's time for one of these reviews. I don't delegate that to anyone else. The mental health, and stress coping for a critical incident is that important that I take the lead on that. One of the examples, and I use this still, if we were to go to an incident and end up having to get in a physical confrontation and end up on the ground, having to physically fight somebody, and you get up off the ground and you got a bone sticking out your arm, they're going to look at you and say, "Oh, go get that fixed."
Yeah.
I said, but when you go to a home and let's say there's been multiple fatalities or there's been a child death or something that for whatever reason that was different for you, and you're like, oh man, I can't get over that. Instead of saying, what's wrong with you? You're like, go get that fixed. It's no different. I can see it. So I say fix it. But unfortunately for some of the stressors that we have, because you can't see it, you don't want to talk about it the same way. And this is my introduction. In July, we do a mental health, I'll say awareness month. I bring in different mental health providers that we are partners with to again remind my team of this is what we offer. This is what we have available for you. And one of the things that I lead off with is I will raise my hand and say that I have post-traumatic stress as bad as anybody you've ever seen. But you notice I did not say that I have a disorder because I have all these outlets. I have my faith. I have, my Christian values that I believe in. I, my studies in the Bible help me to rationalize and to find sense of things. I ride the bike, that helps out. I do things with family. I've got friends. I've got all these other outlets that I have so that I don't get stuck in this loop. So I don't let it become a disorder. And I've got methods to make sure that it doesn't for you either.
Mm.
So that is the message that I would send to anyone else is you got to lead this yourself. You have got to be the poster child of wellness for your department, of doing it, taking advantage of it. You talk about lead by example. This is the one thing that if you do not do, if you ever make some flippant remark or you dismiss someone's incident or something like that, you have really, really set yourself back and it's almost impossible to recover from that. You've got to charge, charge, charge every day. If something is happening, something is wrong. Like again, if we saw somebody physically struggling, we would say, what's happening? What's wrong? Did you hurt yourself? Why can't you? I saw you doing this. I saw you favoring this. I saw you limping. I saw you could, what's wrong? We would not hesitate at all to ask. So we got to ask on the other side of that as well of the unseen things.
Yeah. Well, there were two things that I wanted to kind of point out that you said that I thought were really strong. And
Okay.
you said lead by example, but you said as a leader you have to believe it.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that is so important that if because I think people can sniff out if you're disingenuine or if you're not being authentic about something. So for you to get up, show that you care, that you believe it, share the things that you've gone through, and explain that you're not unique. You know, you are one of them. Like you experience the same stuff that they do and you understand it. And then to not judge people who are
That's
going through
right.
it.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you stand up with, okay, this is your resource guide, you know where to go. Just pick one of these and go talk to somebody and just show them a template of providers. Yeah. Um,
It's never going to happen.
that's not gonna go well. Now,
Yeah, 100%. Jess, do you have any other questions before we close out for the day? I know we're button up on time.
Yeah, no, this has been great. Thank you for sharing.
okay, I
Yeah,
haven't seen that yet.
not yet. We got one more question, and
Oh,
you already shared some wisdom earlier, but we have to ask that final question.
okay.
If you could leave your words of wisdom for the younger generation, what would they be?
It would be to be more intentional earlier on. Um, and I know this is generally learned through experience and learned through time. But I always kind of had a plan, kind of had a plan. Um, I never sat down when I was 21 years old and said, I will be chief one day. But I envisioned myself at least already as a leader somewhere, regardless of what that rank or the title was. I believe that I have the ability to lead people. So I always kind of moved towards those goals, but I wasn't always as intentional about it. Um, they all help me. I believe in, divine providence of, you know, I am called to do what I'm doing. Okay. Everybody has something they're good at, and this is what they should do. Again, I go back to my faith and the calling that God's put on my life is that this is where I'm supposed to be helping people. And I've gotten there through the steps that I give him the glory because he orchestrated that, not me. Um, but be a little bit more deliberate about how you prepare and really set out to take more training, get more education, get more things. Um, I'll kind of split that off into, one of the things that does still cause a lot of stress is the financial side of being in public service. Again, we're growing faster than we're keeping pace, and people are paying and they're coming here because it's cheap. So that means, quality of life for them is outstanding. For people who are here, it's like, I'm still feel like I'm just making minimum wage.
Yeah.
Um, invest earlier and don't be scared to take a little bit more risk to prepare for later. Um, I'm there now. you know, there was years, decades of being married and stuff that we were like, what are we going to do? We're at the end of the money, but we're not at the end of the month. What are we going to do? And we found a way. And I don't want anyone to have to struggle with that. There's so much out there now for financial well-being for police of and one thing in the state of South Carolina, we have a plan called our deferred compensation plan that is separate from our retirement. Start investing in that, and you're growing that money, and you will become your own bank if you understand how this works. And there are people that will educate you about it. And I was not as smart about it early on. But I could teach the class now, thankfully, because I did learn those lessons. But being more intentional about how do you want to get to where you want to go, and the formal process of the classes and the training, and if it's a degree, go get those degrees. But then the other part of it is trying to prepare for your future so that you don't have anything to worry about. And then lastly, it'll be what I started with, which is you got to be balanced, so don't ever get so consumed with anything to where that is the overwhelming part of your life. We're designed, I think, to be in relationships, and those relationships have to have a lot of give and take to them. And that's at work, that's at home, that's at the ball field, that's at church, that's wherever you're involved at. So make sure you have that balance. And if you have the outlets, then the stress doesn't become stress for you, doesn't become a disorder for you. I can go talk to people at church. I can talk to mentors. I can go out, go play around the golf with one of my sons. And, oh man, I feel so much better just taking, 4 hours to go out there, go ride the bike. I can go for a run. I can do something like that. I can grab my wife and we can just go out to eat, go walk somewhere, take the dog out. I can go see my granddaughter and my little grandson and hold him. He's named after me as well. So, I can tell you and challenge you to have as much balance in life as you can, so that when you hit a kind of a block in one thing, while you're figuring out how to get past this block, all this other stuff is there to help you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on here today. We really appreciate your time and sharing your experience and your wisdom. So thank you.